All right, this is going to be, there's no script here. I'm going to go right into it. Today we're going to talk about discarding cards. Now, in VTS, we don't have a move. So you shuffle your deck, you draw your 7 starting cards, and this is what you have, right? Now, I actually didn't do anything here. I loaded the deck, and I drew the cards. Script, well, it's perfect, right? No matter what we start with here, we're gonna have a great start. Now we also got a pretty polarized starting hand. Now this particular deck runs 2 obedience. It's basically the only combat defense, and this is why this starting hand was great, because it really shows you what it can look like. Now the reason I want to talk about discarding every turn, because it's something that I see and that I started doing just maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I've been playing it for a couple of years now. And during this year's European Championship, I think for about 10 games, I think there was 3 turns in total where I didn't discard a card. And I think it was a mistake. There might have been 1 turn where it was fine, but most of the time there's a better card. Now someone said this to me, and this is something I came up, and they said, if you have a card in hand that you're not going to play next round, you can discard it. And I think this is true for a lot of cards. Now, the reason I thought this was interesting is Obedience is one of those cards in this deck where it's actually rough, because there's 2 copies in the deck. If you discard 1 and you only have 1 left, you have 1 rush defense left in the deck. Now obviously this is turn 1, and let's just say we're player 2. So obviously our first turn would look like something like this. We would play the Vital View, we would replace it, and we would play the Metro Underground. Now this start is actually, I would say this start is pretty damn good. Sure, we're missing our governs, but we have our parity shifts if we somehow have a target. We have our Iron Fist, but we're missing our Cavalier. And this is kind of where Dominica comes in, because she can fetch those for us. So we're probably not going to have a super explosive start here. Now the starting hand obviously affects, or it can affect, which card you actually influence. Now if I was player 2, I would still probably go with Juliet Park, because her ability is just so good. Now in this hand here, I think for me there's a pretty easy choice. Something I try to take into consideration is how many copies do I have in the deck and how many do I have in my hands. Now next turn I'm not going to play a parity shift, right? But I still want the option in the later turns. I don't want to discard my Obedience if I have a combat deck besides me, and in this case it would actually be really good if they actually do rush me, because most rush decks today, there are exceptions, are mostly, I want to say, Barons, Bruja Barons. So what I would do is I would discard 1 parity shift. We're just going to put the discard down here, and what do we replace it with? A Govern. Now why is this so great? Well, I think for me there's 2 big reasons. First of all, we've now drawn into a card that we will actually need on later turns, right? Now, do we need to put these here? No. We could do something like 1-1. We could do a 1 here. In this case, I don't think it matters. Now, we didn't draw into a master card. Now, this is rough. This is more rough. Now, in this case, it depends on what I have around me. Now, I did pay 1 here for the Vital View, so it depends now what I have in front of me. Now, I know we have more Lost in Crowds in the deck than we have Forgotten Labyrinth. Now, whether this is correct or not, I would probably discard the Forgotten Labyrinth for the simple reason that I don't know yet what I have besides me. Will I have to have the +3 stealth or not? There are more copies in the deck during the spying mission. So we're just going through the motion here. We have 6 transfers. Now this might have been wrong. At this turn though, this is a little bit more rough. Now, I think depending on what we have behind. Now, if we have something that started to bleed us now, let's say they got it a minion up. That means that we're probably going to take some pool damage, which means I probably don't want to let them go. But it depends. Do I think there's going to be more votes on the table? Now, this is a rough one. Spying mission, we don't have a lot in the deck. And in reality, this is one of those cases where I don't actually want to discard anything. Which one would I go for? Well, we do run Ashers. It might be too late, but and I'm really interested in what's here, but I would probably discard one of them because I can't just hold on to them forever. So we draw into Anarchist Uprising. Not a great draw, to be honest, and not this early. It's usually a card you want to see later, right? So we go to our last turn. Now we get Juliet Power up, and I would discard this one. And here you see. Now, I didn't actually, this was a lucky draw. So we now had 4 discards, right? We've managed to mold our turn. And, you know, people are going to say, oh, you put them in the order. I didn't actually put them in order. I should have done it, but I didn't because I'm lazy. So now, next turn, if Juliet Parr is still standing, if she's rushed, probably by 1, we can play that one. But let's say, you know, we got bled, right? Now we play Cavalier. And this is where the discards so important. And this is just a great example of why. And I was lucky. I probably would have had to redo this video. What can we do now? Well, start with either a Govern down or a Camarilla Iron Fist. Now, if I was lower than my prey, which I'm probably is now because I haven't had any defense, let's assume that I would try to Govern down. And in this case, we probably, should we have discarded the Forgotten Labyrinth? Probably not. A lot of times when they see this, they probably will block it. So I would probably have to play it here. And let's assume I get through, right? Because, 3 stealth, and we get that. We probably put it here because we want Dominique up to hopefully search for something. And now we untap, we pay for the Cavalier. Now we can play the parity. Do we get it through? Obviously, I don't know. Now this was actually wrong. I'm gonna we see what we have in hand. We had 1 deflector from before, so it obviously should have been like this because we want to play the deflections for defense. We have 3. That was silly. Let's just say it doesn't go through. It doesn't really matter. And now we bring up 1, 2, 3. Probably the last one here. Most of the time you can't afford it. And now we come to another discard here. Now, what do we discard here? Well, we have 8 deflections in the deck. And this is one of those situations where I would discard a deflection, most likely. Now, obviously signaling to your predator that you have more, but I think that's fine because if they hold back from bleeding, that's good for you most of the time. And now we draw into dreams. And this was, I'm not saying this is going to be every game, right? But this was just a perfect example of why it's so important to discard. And I think that just deciding that you're going to discard every turn, no matter what, is going to get you a higher win percentage for sure. And I think this held true for me at this EC that I just played. I think that there was at least one of the games that I won was because I was consistently discarding. So I'm going to keep this video short. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm not a great player, but I think this is sound advice. I think if there's one thing as a newer player, try to get into the habit of discarding, even when it feels bad. Try to think, will I play it next turn? What do I have behind? If you're in a situation where you're just like, I have no idea what to discard, obviously maybe don't do it by random, but just try to think. Decide. If you can't decide by 2 cards, just do it randomly and discard, because you're gonna draw. And this also comes down to how powerful masters are. As you saw here, we drew into the Cavalier and we drew into the Dreams because we consistently discarded every turn. Now, would we have drawn this into if we didn't have to play the Lost Soul, the Lost in Crowds? No. But something would have probably been blocked. All right, that's it for now. There's no fancy intro, but I hope you enjoyed the video. And will there be more videos? Maybe, maybe not. Depends if I come up with something I want to talk about. But until next